Well, we want to cover every aspect of Scripture in our Sunday gathering, which is why we call ourselves to worship at the beginning. It's why we ponder a statement of belief and then look at it from Scripture's perspective. We also want to examine our lives. We know that we have fallen short of every one of God's standards, and therefore we have every day areas that we need to confess our sin. As the Psalms consistently remind us, Psalm 119, verse 13, I hate the double-minded, but I love your law. The double-minded is a standard that is inconsistent and you change depending on how you feel each day, but God's law never changes. It is always consistent. Our reading from the law this week is from Leviticus 20, verse 6. If a person turns to mediums or necromancers, whoring after them, I'll set my face against that person and will cut him off from among his people. Mediums and necromancers was the practice of seeking wisdom or counsel from the dead. We have looked at this a number of times this year. It's actually amazing how frequently it comes up. Now, we here in 21st century Kurri are not likely walking around the streets interacting with mediums and necromancers. That's not really the danger that we could fall into. So let me put it to you another way. If it is the practice of seeking counsel from things that are dead or lifeless, we should ponder where we get our counsel and where we get our wisdom from. The danger is that we often turn to Google for any sort of information. Google is impersonal, lifeless, and essentially dead. It removes the option for you to wrestle with God, His Word, and His people. Instead, we go to Google and ask something that is dead for advice on simple, ordinary life things. What's the ration of my baby? How do I swaddle my baby? How do I raise children? How do I discipline my teenager? How do I mow the lawn? All these sorts of things could be asked of someone in your church, but rather you would go to a dead screen and get the advice from them instead. These are simplistic examples that I just gave, but likely, when we come across a challenging passage in the Scripture, the most likely place you would turn is to Google. What does 1 Timothy 2:15 mean? We Google it and we find out what John Piper thinks, what John MacArthur thinks, what another pastor thinks. The principle in Scripture is that we would turn to someone we have a relationship with. The principle in Scripture is that we would pray first of all to the living God and then turn to the living church and seek advice and counsel from the living church. As we have reiterated over and over again, older women teach younger women, older men teach younger men, Titus 2. Or elders teach the church. So when we're stumped on life's questions, we should not turn to the dead, to the lifeless, but rather turn to something that is personal and relational. First of all, turn to God, then turn to His Word, and also seek the counsel of His church. These are the first three principles that a Christian should follow: prayer, His Word, and the church. It is all relational, and it's all confronting, but we know that where there is life, more life comes, rather than a secret, dead conversation with a screen. I think this is an area that we are probably blind to in our day and age, and it's easy for us to quickly get the answer rather than having to call someone, meet with them, or wrestle with God in prayer over a series of times. If there is anything that's convicted you as you examine your heart, I invite you now, in solemn confession, to confess your sin before the Lord.